6 o'clock.
We'd like to welcome everyone to the March 8th meeting of the New Bern Board of Aldermen. Tonight, the prayer will be given by Alderwoman Jamisha Harris.
Thank you. Everybody bow your head. Father God, we come to you tonight and we just ask to give us guidance as we do the work with integrity, and we come together and work together on all aspects. We just want to pray for anybody that may be sick and shut in, anyone that could not be here tonight that would want to be here tonight in spirit. We appreciate you for all that you do. In your name, amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Bingle.
Here.
Alderwoman Harris.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Odom.
Here.
Okay, we do have some requests, petitions of citizens. Thank you. Laura Lee, you'd like to come forward and give us your address and name for the record?
I'm Lorelei Schaffhouse, and I live at 511 Metcalf Street, New Bern, North Carolina, 28560. And well, I would like to thank the aldermen and the mayor for having removed Union Point Park from the MOU with Kessler Corporation. We truly appreciate that. The problem has not been solved. The problem is being able to maintain this green space for the city residents in perpetuity. I can never say that right. And I sent an email to everybody about this last week, and I got no response. So I would just like to read the email that's in your inboxes or outboxes or somewhere. It says, "Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Alderman. I am requesting you pursue legally protecting Union Point Park from any future development. Clearly, citizens of this town want to have this resource for future generations. The petition under change.org has over 10,000 signatures. Prior generations intended the park be preserved. Otherwise, Mayor Bengal would not have limited the possibility of preserving it. Yet a loophole was left, making the sale of this property a possibility. There are so many reasons to preserve Union Point Park in perpetuity, including environmental, historical, cultural, financial, aesthetic, and political. Legally conserving Union Point Park would go a long way toward rebuilding confidence in citizens that their city leaders listen to them. Please put this on the agenda for the 3/8 BOA meeting under new business. Thank you for considering the will of so many constituents." And I just re-emphasize that people really want this property to remain for the future. I understand. I've met some personal friends of your mother-in-law, and they said that she would go down for years after being mayor to spend time in that park. You know, past generations wanted it to be preserved, and we'd like to see it preserved for the future.
Thank you.
When did you send the email? I'm just trying to find it. I don't see it.
Last Thursday.
Okay.
It might have went into that special inbox. It's 100.
Did anybody get the email?
I did get it, and thank you for writing it, and I
Thank you.
appreciate your.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing came back saying it wasn't deliverable.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking. I don't see it. I try to respond to everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Dustin?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dustin Canisthorpe. I live at 3204 Thatcher Court in the Ward, sir. Last month, on 8 February, during the same meeting in regards to item 11 on that agenda, approving the MOU with New Bern Historic LLC, i.e. Kessler Collection / Group, and it contained a provision of possible development of part of Union Point Park, like the lady was talking about before me. While I didn't have the time to dig into that matter, as I heard about that issue being tabled during that agenda within hours, immediately after the following days, I went ahead and I dug a little bit deeper. I could be wrong. I don't know, because I'm a little confused with all the different documentation. It is my understanding that not only would the Kessler Collection expand the river walkway, like we talked about during the debate and everything, provide public restrooms, like some people discussed as well, but they would have been responsible for maintaining the maintenance and the upkeep of all of Union Point Park. That's, from what I read, that's what it looked like it was being proposed. If that is true, I might need to revise my position on developing part of Union Point Park, because the amount of tax revenue that could have been reprogrammed then for other things like affordable housing or whatever issues that the individual aldermen and women hold dear to them, that money can be used for that. During the request and petition of the citizens, citizen after citizen, dozens of us, it was a packed house, came with one question, and then the majority spoke. I thought it was pretty clear. The majority spoke what we wanted as citizens. Then all you debated. Then you, sir, you made a motion. Ma'am, you seconded. A vote went around the horn and was voted in the affirmative. Though we reached out to you, you wouldn't lend a hand. It felt cold. So very cold. How I've lived so much of my life, multiple decades of sacrificing for this very institution right here. It is supposed to be called a democracy. And that just simply didn't feel true. I made a request, and I'm asking of you two things. I made a request of two things from you last month. Be impeccable with your word. Mean what you say what you mean. The other thing was transparency. Be transparent. Well, I have a little bit of time left. I would like to take the opportunity to talk about you, our elected officials. I would never want to be an elected official. That's putting yourself out there publicly. Yes, you all work jobs, but you ran for office. I don't have a whole lot of sympathy whether you own a business or you work 9 to 5. I commend you, but I ask you to listen to the people. Vote what the people want, not what you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next is Edwin.
My name is 119 Randomwood Lane in New Bern, North Carolina. I'd like to start out with a quote that I saw in the newspaper by Albert Einstein. He said, "The world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it." As elected officials in the city and county, you have to be true to your word when you say things and they don't happen. I had the privilege of sitting at the Craven County Board of Commissioners meeting last night. And I was told that, and I'm trying to find out information, that the airport that I love in New Bern is going to have an economic impact statement to widen Williams Road to have a longer runway. And the economic impact statement is going to be $750,000 to $1.5 million. Now, for years, way before some of these elected officials been here, I've been a citizen advocate since 2007 forward. And I've always talked about the city-county partnership. If we talk about these things, you got to sit down and say, hey, if the airport's going to be expanded, does the city want to contribute that and the county? That way it's a partnership. Or they just want to have a laissez-faire attitude about it. If we talk about doing a partnership, little by little, the things that the county does, maybe the city can take over, and things that the city does, the county can take over, and share some savings across the board. I've already went through their budget ordinance from last year to this year, and between our fair city, which has started out when I was doing this, $34 and $35 million, is creeping to be $45 million. The county does things, and their budget is $121 million. The two biggest cows are the health department and Craven County Schools. So I'm asking, if you're an elected official and you talk about partnering with the county, go to some of these meetings, find out what's going on. There may be some shared responsibility and savings for the city. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other petitions at this time? Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda as is.
Second.
Motion second, is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Hughes.
Good evening, Mayor. Next item is consider a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Department of Justice Marshal Service. For several years, the New Bern Police Department has participated in the Task Force Officer Program with the Justice Marshal Service. Through this partnership, the Marshal Service has engaged in numerous operations throughout New Bern and Craven County to hunt down wanted fugitives. The fourth quarter of FY21, 307 warrants were served in our region, and 179 fugitives were arrested. This MOU provides that the U.S. Department of Justice pay the police department an amount not to exceed $10,000 for overtime of a sworn officer. So we have been participating in this program for several years. We've got a memo attached by Chief Gallagher, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Board have questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Department of Justice Marshal Services.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 9, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Next item is consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with James L. Cayton and Associates for FY22 water and sewer improvement projects. Bids were sought for this improvement, which involves Court Street and portions of High Street, River Road, and Washington and Raleigh Street. The project will eliminate deteriorated mains and sewer backups in the area. A total of 4 bids were received, with the lowest bid submitted by James L. Cayton for $758,550. The proposed resolution authorizes the city manager to execute this contract. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does the board have questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with James L. Cayton and Associates, Inc. for the fiscal year 22 water and sewer improvement project.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 10.
Next item is consider an ordinance to amend Article 5, Trucks and Trailers of Chapter 70. This ordinance clearly defines trucks and trailers, and it also expands the parking restrictions to prohibit overnight truck and trailer parking along the portion of National Avenue between Dunn Street and North Avenue. A memo from the Assistant City Attorney is attached, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just a comment, Mayor, I want to thank Attorney Mosley and Davis for their assistance in this. The Riverside Association contacted me. They've had someone who was having an abatement issue with cars and trucks on their property, which was a side street. So they were fined. They moved the trucks and they put them on National Avenue and left them all parked up and down there because that was a state-owned street. Now it's in the city, and so we did not have an ordinance that included that. So that's why you see this in front of you. So I appreciate the work. I know the citizens will be happy to get rid of these bad vehicles that are now parked on National Avenue. So I hope that the abatement officer will go out there tomorrow and take care of it if we can get this passed tonight. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt an ordinance to amend Article 5, Trucks and Trailers of Chapter 70.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 11.
Next item is to consider an ordinance to close the Cops More 98 Grant Fund. This item and the next four items are for cleanup purposes in our budget and also in our audit. The board adopted an ordinance on November 10th, 1998 to establish the Cops More 98 Grant Project Fund. This grant ended on June 30th, 2000, and the proposed ordinance will formally close the program in the city's financial system.
Mayor, if the board doesn't have a problem, I wanted to include all four. Is that what you're gonna say, Jeff?
Yeah, 11 through 15.
11 through 15. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the ordinance to close the Cops More 98 Grant Fund, Garage Relocation Project Fund, 2017 Water Improvement Project Fund, Water Resource Relocation Project, and the 2017 Sewer Improvement Project.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 16.
Mayor, next item is discussion on the City Hall elevator project. At this time, I'd like to ask Chip Ewer with MDF Architects to make a presentation.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, thank you for having me tonight. What I'd like to do is just share some background information that might help us facilitate our discussion. We provided an advertisement announcing the bid proceeding on the city's website. Plans were made available to various contractor information agencies to disseminate information. We confirmed that we placed plans and specifications in the hands of 39 licensed contractors of various trades. A pre-bid conference was then conducted on February 10th of this year, and various plan holders attended that event. They were given the opportunity to address project-specific inquiries, clarifications, and bidding procedures. We opened bids on February 24th. They were solicited in accordance with public bidding procedures as stipulated in the general statutes, particularly 143-129 and General Statute 143-132. And bids were solicited in the single prime alternative. The bids we received are valid for 30 days. And I believe you have copies of the certified bid tab in your agenda tonight. As you already know, the bids received exceeded the funding that you gave us to work with for this project. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding how we may move forward.
So Tripp, would you say that the increase is 100% due to COVID and the increased cost of goods and materials, or is there something else that we missed?
It is primarily due to three conditions, in my opinion. One, you've already mentioned the pandemic. You've probably heard a lot in construction about supply chain issues. That's still an ongoing problem. And then lastly, we're seeing some inflation in the overall economy. And since we asked for a lump sum bid, it's my assessment that those three factors are what has caused us to be over where we would like to be.
Well, I'll tell you,
We batted this around for how long? They've
that's
been working
about-
on this elevator for 35 years that I can think of. And it is a shame, I'm sure many of you saw our good friend Brendan Hildreth outside. who cannot get into this building. And we have kicked this can, and I guess in some sense it's us, this board and boards before us who have kicked the can, hoping that we could find a better way, and we haven't, and therefore the price has increased. This is the People's Hall. We talk about people being able to come and speak and do things, and you can't get inside the building or up the steps. It could be used for so much more, but it can't because we don't have an elevator. I will say that I about had 7-11 heart attacks when I saw how much more the bid was. But if we wait another year, if we try to go to another venue, is it, another route, how much more is it going to cost us? Will it continue to rise? I'm not sure. I don't know what we would see in the future, but the mayor and I today paid a visit to Miss Sampson, and of course, how many times has she had to be carried up the stairs? And that woman, for at least the last 60 years, has been coming to this building and having a difficult time getting up the steps. And
And her first
told us
question was,
when
is it going to be built before
die.
I'm not here?
Yeah.
And that question's probably been asked by a lot of people in the last 50 years.
So I think it's important, maybe we could do some creative financing. I think we talked, as we're going to see in our list here, maybe ARP money could take the gap that we originally thought we were going to pay and the additional funds it's going to cost us now. I'm not sure, but I believe that it is necessary to be able to get our people in this building, whether you're handicapped, elderly, just not having a good day and can't get up the stairs. Those are my only comments.
Mr. City Manager, taking the entire funds, other amount of money for to build this elevator and financing it over 15, 20, 25 years, what kind of, number one, what kind of rate would we be receiving, and what would our payments be?
Let me ask Ms. Ostrom to come up. She did some research for us today.
So I reached out to the bank, and on 3.9 million, we had a rate of 2.86%. And then I did 3 million, and that was for 10 years. There's it was set 2.69%.
And what would
I did 10 years and 15 years, 3 million, and then at 3.9 million for 10 years and 15 years.
What's the annual payment?
So for, which amount?
You can give us both.
Okay, so for what I did is the most, 3.9 million at 15 years with 2.86%. You're looking at total payments of $4,792,000.
What's the yearly, so what would the payment be?
I'm sorry?
I think we want to know what the.
Yeah, how much would
what's
it
the
cost
yearly
us a
payment?
year?
How much would it
Okay.
cost us a year?
So a year you would be paying about $370,000, $350,000.
And that's for 15 years?
Yeah, it drops down over time, but
Sure. And that's for the entire amount?
for the full amount.
Yeah, well, we can use that ARP money for anything we want to, right?
We were underneath the $10 million threshold, so yes, sir.
I'm all in favor of financing the entire amount, and let's build an elevator and save our ARP money for other projects.
Is the 15 the longest you can push it out for a project like this, or because of the amount?
20 years is the longest you can push it out, but they weren't able to give me an estimate at 20 years before the end of the day.
Okay.
But potentially we
What do you-
could go to 20
Right.
years.
Foster,
Is
I have a
anybody
question.
interested in that?
What is the value of this building?
Priceless.
That's a great question, and I actually had a conversation with the mayor, who is an appraiser, and that value really could be anywhere from $3 million up to $12 million. There's really no value on this building, so that we could really go out unless we had an appraiser come and appraise it.
What is we had a project that was going on that was very expensive of repairs. Where are we at with that as well? The steps going up to the third floor.
So we have not funded that project yet, so we.
What is the price on that?
That is approximately $50,000 to fix the stairs. We do have to address a roof issue, which we'll have in the budget for this year as well. Also, on the outside, we're working with FEMA to basically repoint two sides of the brick building. That price is approximately $200,000. The goal is to repoint the entire building. Total cost for that would be $400,000.
So the structure itself is pretty sound?
Overall, yes, sir.
I know this, yes, sir, go ahead.
Just a question for Tripp. Could you just describe for us and for the public's benefit, this is not just an elevator shaft. It's bringing the entire city hall up to ADA standards as far as restroom facilities, correct?
That is correct, and we've tried to put a good bit of content into a rather small package. It also includes a second means of egress. The building currently only has one means of egress. So the project would satisfy a number of code requirements that would be determined deficient otherwise.
And the other question I had would be, if you were to get creative, I know you guys have been working on this for several years, if you got creative and added an elevator shaft somewhere to just provide an elevator for City Hall, would there be requirements from a code standpoint to provide other facilities at that point inside the building that were ADA accessible?
I don't think so, but the bigger problem is you don't have the capacity or space to make those other improvements within your current footprint. So keep in mind that the way the elevator is connecting to historic City Hall, it's removing 2 of your 3 bathrooms right now. You'll recall we also did a preliminary exploration about locating an elevator within the interior of historic City Hall, as well as a number of other scenarios, and this was the best scenario suited to get what we needed, but also to solve some of these code issues that we've been fighting for a long time.
Thank you.
So I concur with you, Alderman Asker, about financing this project. But Kim, could you come up for, again, please? I guess this is something that the board, we need to decide on whether we want to go with 10 years or 15 years.
We can go 20.
Or 20.
I was gonna say, if we
I
could,
think
that's what I wanted to know before the other questions, is if we can, not necessarily table it, but if we can get the what it would be to finance the longest, I think that would be the best bet and still preserve the ARP funds.
But Kim, didn't you say that they couldn't supply you with the 20-year at this point?
Just today, I couldn't get it by the end of the day.
Today, okay.
So all you're looking for tonight is direction to continue or to stop it, right?
That's correct. We need direction.
So, I mean, I'm all in favor of giving directions to continue, let our finance director find the best solution for financing for us, bring it back to us, and we'll make a decision. I think we need to really, at that time, we can really consider as to whether or not we were going to use ARP funds or not. But with a rate of 2.86. 2.8. Can I get some of that? I think we should. I think we should just go ahead and proceed, and with that kind of a rate, I'm more inclined to finance the entire amount, whether we go 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. Whatever finance director thinks is the best bang for our bucks, and let's make a decision, and let's get an elevator in this building.
To add on to what Alderman Astor is saying, to extend it out as long as we can, do we have a healthy enough balance in money coming in to cover these payments? Just as your thought process, so people understand that we're in a good space to be able to actually finance.
Yes, I actually ran the numbers and did a comparison on an annual basis to see what that would look like. And because we have some debt coming off over the next couple years, so we are in a good position.
Thank you.
I have a question for, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, one thing we have to be careful, we only have, those bids are only good for 30 days. And with the price of material moving up and down, more like up instead of down, we probably need to make a quick decision on this thing.
If you could, I could use a direction to either award contract or not. And if we choose to award contract, that has to be done before March 25th.
Our next meeting is on the 22nd.
Tripp, my question was, what would the timeline be? So say we're going ahead with this, we're gonna move on it. So, I mean, do we stand outside your office and knock on the door and say, are you working today? Or is it, you know, what's the timeline for this?
Well, the contractors are aware that there is some urgency to get the project moving. We've shared with them that this board has met many times in order to push this project forward. I have asked them to be prepared to execute a contract within 10 days of notification of award. And sometimes 10 days can be a little aggressive. It certainly won't take more than 30. Once we have the contracts in place, then we can schedule our pre-construction conference essentially in the next several days following contract execution.
So you're talking 12 to 15 months to build this, or what are you?
And it's, we've given a year.
A year.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. A year.
Tripp, are there any performance clauses in there about time?
There is, it's a year's construction time, and there is a liquidated damages amount. I don't recall exactly what it is, but it's usually neighborhood of 500.
That was in the pre-bid documents, is that?
That's
they
part
did
of the
it, okay.
construction contract.
Okay.
And it's a general provision that is customary for a municipal client.
Thank you.
Or do you need, Mr. Davis, do we need to have a vote, or how do we put this forward? Or what do
Typically, we would
draw
have a
back?
package, typically, we would have a package on the agenda with a resolution to
So that would
support
be
the
next
award.
meeting.
So yeah, can we get the information in regards to the rates and how far out we can go and have it on the agenda for the 22nd for us to vote on and still be in time to meet the deadline for
Yes.
Tripp?
I think so.
That's the better course.
The only thing you have to do, Tripp, is verbally tell them, and the paperwork.
Essentially, we'd ask them to hold their bid till that date.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you're the apparent low bidder, it's, everyone always agrees to hold their bid.
Okay. So then I'm ready to give direction, just like I stated before, to proceed and let the finance director come back with our rate, with some good rates, and we'll vote next meeting.
Great.
I just want to remind you too, we'll have to go to LGC as well.
How long does that take?
Probably 45 days, I
Can
think,
we-
before we can get on their,
Can we award the contract before we go to the LGC? I mean, is that?
yeah, we just have to do a
Okay.
letter of intent to reimburse.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
they were asking.
So that's not, that wouldn't hold us up from awarding the contract? Okay.
No.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Is everybody good with the directions to move forward? Any concerns here?
Well, what a milestone tonight.
I know.
How about what?
I said, what a milestone. It's
Okay,
time, it's
great.
been way time to get this elevator going.
Okay, if there's nothing further on number 16, we're going to go to appointments. Alderman Dean.
Yes, sir. We want to make appointments to the Redevelopment Commission. We have had 2 people to step down. So this evening, I would like to appoint Stephanie Lovick to fill the expired term of Maria Cho. And I'd like to appoint Julius Parham, who was former alderman and was on the Housing Authority Board, to John Young's unexpired term, which will expire in August.
2 excellent people, and I'll second that.
There is up for discussion.
Okay, there's a motion, second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I wanted to appoint Barbara Sampson to the board because she's, she goes to meetings and she is within the community. And I think it's important to at least have someone on the board that is, directly in the community, and at all of the other subcommittee meetings, to continue to build that relationship, for the redevelopment commission. I know that, we want individuals, or we set it up to have individuals that have all of the background, but I feel like she has the background as well in regards to being in the community, and being a part of the conversation and working.
Let me just mention too, Ms. Lovick is a mental health counselor, and I think she would bring a lot to the table, because again, the void that's that's taken place now with Ms. Cho and Mr. Young leaving is the health and wellness, and certainly mental health is an issue that the community is really, is a concern in the community. So I think she would do an excellent job, and she's young, and I think it's good to get some young people involved. And of course, Mr. Parham has been a person in the community for many, many years growing up there, and certainly knows a lot about what goes on in the community as well as what happens on the board. So I just think he would be an excellent choice.
Do you have when Ms. Cho and Mr. Young's term expires?
Yes. So Ms. Cho's term won't expire till August of '24, because she was just recently reappointed last year, I believe. And Mr. Young's term will expire in August of '22, so this August, his term will expire. So Mr. Parham would only be in the seat unless he was reappointed until August of 2022. And there'll be another seat that expires that time. So now we're in the every year, two people, the terms expire and reappointments can happen.
I definitely support Stephanie Lovick to fill Cho's position. If we can meet in the middle and allow Barbara Sampson to sit on the board until August of this year, and if she gets a reappointment from the work, there's another position coming up that Julius can serve on. But I think it's important to have people that live and serve in the community to be on there as well. So I mean, we could meet in the middle if possible. I'm asking.
I agree with you, Alderman Harris, to include people that live within the community. I think that would be a plus. You gain the community's respect. So I agree with.
Does Mr. Parham not live in the community? Is Bern Street not considered the
Yes, Bern Street is, but I'm just saying,
Well, he
Ms.
lives in
Sampson Barbara Sampson has been very advocate about a lot of issues that pertain to the Duffy Field Redevelopment Commission and all of that. So I agree with you.
Right.
Alderman Harris,
I
on that.
value all positions. I'm just saying that, if we can meet in the middle, because there is a third position coming up, and this one does expire soon, and then the ability to reappoint if it's not a good fit.
Is this something that we can talk with either one of these individuals to see if they, how they feel about, since one of them's position is gonna, seat is gonna be vacant in August of this year. I mean, Mr. Parham may be willing to.
I've made the motion, and it has been seconded. If you want to vote it and then make an alternate amendment, that is certainly, if it fails, that is certainly the way we could go. So I want to call the question.
Okay. Let's have I know we can do it by voice vote. Let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom, and see how this motion second goes.
It's for Lovick and Parham, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
No.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
No.
Alderman Beagle.
Yes.
The motion carries. Do you have any further appointments tonight?
No, sir.
Alderwoman Harris,
Not tonight, sir.
Alderman,
None tonight, sir.
Alderman Kinsey,
No, sir.
Alderman Bass,
No, sir.
and Alderman Odom.
Yes, sir. With the vacancy of Ms. Olenhausen leaving the city, she was our ACT representative, and I would like to make a motion that we appoint Mr. Marvin Williams, who was the former Havelock Police Chief. I think he'd be a great choice to be our liaison for ACT at Cherry Point. That's
Are
my
you
motion.
willing to do that?
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion?
He was asked before I did that.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. Any other appointments at this time? Attorney's report,
Nothing important, Mayor.
city manager's report.
Got three things, Mayor. First one is we're going to have our grand opening for the Martin Marietta Park on Friday, March 25th at 11 a.m. We'll send out invitations, so we hope the public will be able to come out and enjoy our brand-new park. Also on Saturday, March 26th, the fire department will have an open house. They'll also be doing the fire truck pull as part of an MDA fundraiser. That will take place at the fire headquarters, 1401 News Boulevard from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And also, the last item is send everyone an ARP, American Rescue Plan Funds memo. We have received $6,704,351. We received half of that last year, and we expect to receive the balance in May of this year. We have to obligate all of those funds by December 31st of 2024. So there have been several recommendations that have been floated around. We've had 2 workshops on this. Sent you some recommendations today. We're happy to take whatever direction that the board would like to provide staff to move forward at any time that this board is ready to act.
Mr. Hughes, what was the date, what was the time for the grand opening of Martin Marietta?
It will be at 11 a.m.
11 a.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
11 till?
It'll be 11 until.
Okay.
And we will send releases out to the media and also to all of the elected officials.
What was the date again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Friday, March 25th.
20.
And other questions, I have some questions in reference to the ARP funds.
Yes, ma'am.
So, in our prior discussion, we just had about the elevator, so this $1 million
Could potentially.
can be taken away. And I have some issues here because what amount of money are we allocating here from ARP funds for the stormwater project? I know you got it combined with sidewalks, so is
We can allocate whatever this board directs us to do. In our last workshop, I believe we had discussed a little over $2 million for that, but we're happy to take whatever direction you want to give us.
Well, now you have about 3.4 million to be able to do stormwater and sidewalk projects.
Well, we don't know about the $1 million yet because we don't know what our finance director is going to recommend as far as financing is concerned, whether we want to put $1 million of ARP money with it or not. So, I mean, I wasn't given the opportunity to give to voice my opinion on what I wanted this money for.
and nor did I.
So,
And nor did I.
Okay, let me just back up a moment. I think we've had 2 workshops, and I haven't seen in any from staff or from elected officials any movement. That's my thought on it. So I asked for the manager and assistant manager and the mayor pro tem and the mayor to meet to discuss some things that at least we, representing the staff and elected officials, could meet, and then if we could agree on this, then go to the elected body. And if this appears carte blanche on my part, so be it. But it's not. It's just an attempt to get some things out here. And I think what the 4 of us were trying to do, and more particularly the mayor pro tem and I, were things that we could agree on, not agree on.
Right.
And so what we were trying to do is put forward items that, particularly past history of this city getting grants, clean water trust funds, and other things. $33 million from FEMA for capital improvements and silt mitigation, et cetera. I didn't particularly see taking ARP money to do things that we can fund, just like recreation through grant sources, et cetera. Doesn't mean that I'm totally against the use of any of this for drainage, because that's dear to my heart, as you well know. So again, this is what the 4 of us agreed on, that we could agree on.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that there's other things that could be added, but you know, here we are. The money's available. Let's get it out there and serve the citizens. This is all this is. It's not going behind or over anybody. It's just to get the conversation and get some money flowing to the city of New Bern residents. That's what it is.
Well, and it's a great list to start with. Yeah, number one, I would say until we get some prices back on what it's gonna cost us to build the Stanley White Center, why do we want to go ahead and dedicate $1 million towards it?
Because we know from the elevator and other things, it's definitely gonna cost more than $8 million or whatever the amount was. We know that. We know that we might add some aspects of health and wellness to the Stanley White Center, whatever.
And then I'll say the same thing that's been told to me of several times is, we got a new board that's gonna be seated in about 60 days. Maybe we should wait and get that new board on board and see if they've got any thoughts and ideas on this money.
Mayor, I just have a comment. I think it's great that somebody took the initiative to start the conversation. Just to piggyback on what Alderman Astor just said, the city's only received $3.3 million as of today, if I'm reading this correctly. And the rest of it will be expected to be received in May of this year. And what Alderman Astor just said, there is an election in May. So I think the first thing you need to do is take any money off the table that we haven't received yet. I think that would be prudent first and foremost. And there's some things on here I can certainly get behind. There's some things I can't. But I agree. I don't think we should be allocating money for a project that we don't even have the price for yet. And we've established, I thought it was very clear, at least I've said it several times, that we have a budget for Stanley White, and the budget is the budget. If it comes back more than that, there needs to be some adjustments made to it. That's my opinion. So what I'd like to do, what I plan to do is, over the next week, I'll take this information and I'll send Mr. Hughes my thoughts on this list, and then we can go from there.
Well, I agree with, I got to respect both of y'all's opinion, but I also, when we had that last workshop, we had our engineer for the public works, we had our public works director, and yet they stood before us and they told us that it would take, they gave us an estimate of $2 million for some drainage deficiencies for the Greater Dufferfield, the East Rose Street, the North Hills, the Simmons Street. We have some serious water issues over there, and it's like we just keep on kicking this can down the road when we talk about this particular area. We got citizens that's been living in that area for decades, okay? 50 years or more. And if we talk about, like the gentleman just said earlier, we got to watch what we say. If we talk about and sit up here and talk about allotting $2 million for a drainage project, and then you come back later on, I'm looking at this list, and when you put a list in front of me, outline, and I understand what you said, Mayor, this is just a talking point. But when you put a list like this in front of me, and I don't see an allotted amount, line item for stormwater, that's an issue for me. And I just think that we need to all come together and realize that our citizens, not one of us sitting up here, will want to live in an area where you get inundated by water when you have a storm, just a storm water, rainwater. So, you know, we got to do something. This is an issue for me, and I just feel that we're supposed to get $6.7 million from the ARP fund, Alderman Odom, and I assure you, we will get that. They've already gave us 3.2. So that money is coming, and if it means we got to take $1 million for the elevator, I'm for that, because we need an elevator. If we need to take some more of this money for sidewalk, let's do so. We need sidewalks, and we definitely need to get the stormwater project running. And we can discuss all day, we can kick this can down the road 2 months from now, but we still gonna have the same issues for our citizens that live in that area. So I just hope we as a board can reason with each other and discuss this, and, excuse me, I'm not finished yet. That we can reason with each other and discuss this and come up with a solution for our citizens that live within those areas of this city.
Alderman Best, I thought, and I want some clarification, that the $2 million in there was the $2 million we discussed at the meeting. So the $2 million is the stormwater, the 0.45, so the 450,000 was for the sidewalks.
Well, when I got a rundown previously, and it was 1 point. previously, I got a rundown, it was 1.5 for sidewalks. So,
Okay.
okay,
Because
that was the
asked that
rundown I
question
got
earlier.
previously. But now you got 2.45 million here, which I'm fine with, but just,
Okay.
you know, let's do something about this stormwater. We have to take $1 million from something else here on this, and again, I don't see putting $1 million in Martin Marietta Park right now. That's a park. Our citizens don't live in a park, okay? That money can be allocated to this stormwater. We need to get this stormwater under control. Martin Marietta Park is gonna be a great asset, revenue builder for this city. But right now, I just don't see putting $1 million into that project.
What is $250,000 for housing rehabilitation for?
That, again, these are all suggestions.
I understand.
So a lot of these things have not been vetted to give you the full rules and regulations, but it would basically be a housing rehab for low-income homeowners. And that is something that would qualify under ARP funds.
Okay. Well, and I'm okay with that, but I think a good use of some of this money as well would be to give some dollars to the Redevelopment Commission and let them start rehabbing some of the homes over there and doing their thing. I mean,
Isn't that what the 250,000 housing rehabilitation is for?
Yeah.
For the redevelopment?
how much?
So,
We had in there up to 250 for the McCotter House renovation and help them run programs.
Okay.
Well, it's ironic that you said that you're not in favor of Martin Marietta. That's probably the one project on here that I'm in favor of, because I'm ready for an amphitheater to be built to give our people something to go to and listen to concerts and have fun. However, I still say that, and I've been told this on many of projects that I have brought forward, that we got a new board that's going to be seated in 60 days. We need to wait and see before we allot all this money or allocate all this money. We need to wait and see if the new board's got anything they would like to do with this money.
to
Well, I
counter,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'd just like to get some, okay, so, right, I was asked by the mayor to have a meeting in regards to these funds, and some of the suggestions that I did was, the suggestions that I brought to the board was the $250,000 for housing rehabilitation, because I went to the, community block grant meeting, yesterday, and the community came out in, numbers, and they want to see some completion, and we have a great relationship with Habitat. And this is something that we can work with Habitat to make sure that within the city of New Bern, homeowners are also having the ability to get repairs, because when you use the community block grant, there's heavier restrictions because of the money that is coming from. If we do it with Habitat, it's different.
May I ask you one question?
Go ahead.
I thought one time before we had asked Habitat if they would do rehabs and remodels, and they
For
said no.
rental property,
Pardon me?
for rental property. So like if you own a rental property, no, they don't do that, but this is actually
For homeowners, they will do
Yeah,
a refurb?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Then the other one was, I'm a big proponent of nonprofits. They do a lot of the work that necessarily we can't do in the city. So just like we did with the COVID funds, doing another doing $250,000 for them to apply. The Redevelopment Commission for the McCotter House, because that is a project for the Wellness Center that we're looking to get completed. It's a benefit to the community. I also stated Henderson Park, that, you know, they provided what it would look like to have covered basketball. We don't know when Stanley White is going to be built, and because of that process, we don't have a gymnasium where, you know, they can play basketball all day or however. So if we're going to upfit Henderson Park, why not put this cover over it so that they can play outside even if it's raining? I did not suggest the $1 million towards the elevator. I didn't suggest the $1 million towards Stanley White. Although the money is allocated from FEMA and the money that we got, obviously we see with the elevator project that the price will go up. You want to make sure you have funds, so I'm not against it being allocated. I'm also in favor of the Martin Marietta because, again, it is entertainment that's being brought to our city, and it is upfitting the outside, like the mayor was explaining, or Foster was explaining, because we still have our movable, stage to be able to, generate that income. And then I'm also a big proponent in the remainder of the money going to sidewalks and stormwater. Yes, we only been allocated 3.3 million, and we are a sitting board that received that money, so then we should be able to make a decision on that 3.3 million if we're gonna go down the route of there's a new board being set in the next 60 days. 3 of you will be on that board, so you can weigh in on the decision of where we spend the 3.3, but we should not kick the can down the road on the 3.3, whether it's allocated to stormwater or wherever we need to allocate some of this money. So I guess the suggestion of what Alderman Odom said in regards to, getting back with Foster, with your feedback, and then maybe we bring it up for discussion at the next meeting. If, we're not in agreement right now, it's a start to have the conversation, because at the end of the day, we have the responsibility to do something with this money, part of it, and to put the responsibility on the next board is, they have the next 3.3 million, but until then, we have needs that are immediate in the communities right now. We give $250,000 to Habitat. That is more people that they can help get them homes up to code, so they're not being torn down. The redevelopment, just like Bobby said, we can give more money to the redevelopment. They're, for what they're doing. Those are things we can spend the money on now. You have the sidewalks, all of that. So we definitely need to continue to have the discussion. So I appreciate the mayor initiating and taking the leadership in doing that.
I appreciate all of y'all that attended that meeting this morning. Like I said, to get this started, but Kim, when did we receive this first $3.3 million? It was in May.
May.
Was it? Do you remember if it was the latter part of May or the beginning of May? And,
I don't recall.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And I can't, I can't agree with y'all when you sit up here and you say, let the incoming board make those decisions. In May, we would still be sitting here in these seats.
Mm-hmm.
So we have $6.7 million. I feel that we as a board need to take direction, and we are the ones need to allocate that money for projects. And I'm not gonna sit up here and disrespect any one of you of what you have said that you wanted to do with this money, because that's y'all's decision. But my decision is that there's numerous things up here, and I'm like, oh, I want to come back to Foster, and we need to readdress this, because I think some of these projects takes priority over others.
Absolutely.
And especially when it comes to the lives of our citizens. So that's the way I'm looking at this whole project with this $6.7 million. So whatever y'all want to do, if you
Well,
want.
is there any one single item on here that the board would feel like that March 8th, it's time to move forward? I mean, the money is available.
Exactly.
Maybe some of these are very immediate needs.
$2 million in drainage.
Yeah, I would say, let's go for it, because that's what we decided at the last meeting, and Barbara's right, I went back in my notes, that's exactly the amount we talked about. It's there, I say, get the money and go.
I agree.
And is there a motion to that with a second, or?
Well, may I interject? Okay. When you say $2 million now, you look at this, I look at this estimate sheet that was given to me at that workshop, and within that $2 million, it's not all allocated for drainage for North Hill, Simmons Street, Hazel Avenue, and all of that area. And for the East Rose Street project, it's got numerous projects within that $2 million. So what I'm talking for is, because I know we already have a project for the Biddle Street portion of this, of the Dufferfield Stormwater Project. I'm looking at, I know it was at the north side, is that the north side, North Hills, and yeah, I'm looking at a project like the Biddle Street project. I'm looking for a project to come over on the North Hill side. If it means putting in pumps, if it's gonna take $2 million to put in pumps, Mary, you the expert here. Is it gonna take $2 million as we discussed in that February 24th meeting?
Well, from our meeting with staff, again, I think they got the direction, Al, to move forward and start. Is Al, would you come up and answer that?
So I understand what you're saying, and I respect everything, but we agreed on that
Oh,
amount
George?
based on all of the projects that were being done. So,
Right.
So for me to understand, are you asking for $2 million to be allocated to a separate project specifically for the North Hill side?
What I'm asking for is whatever it's gonna take to get the drainage problem started over on North Hills, Hazel Avenue, Simmons Street, that portion of Dufferfield, East Road Street. What is it gonna take to get that project started, whether it's implementing pumps,
Let's let George
whatever.
If you look,
update from Bern.
Alderman Harris, here it is, I'm sorry, Alderman Best. This was the estimated $2 million for drainage deficiencies.
I got it, you don't have to read it to me, I got it.
No, but
Right
it
here.
did say the East Rose culvert was $500,000. And that's what you're talking about, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And
then
drainage for North
The drainage
Hills?
study for North Hills. So
Correct.
that's stuff that we can get going
Exactly.
immediately.
Exactly.
By going ahead and putting the $2 million towards this. And then it'll give some bank stabilization, Norfolk Southern culvert replacement, which impacts that area over there by Biddle and behind that way. So I'm comfortable with taking the $2 million and going in that direction, and it's here outlined for us.
Mr. Charles, could you just kind of intervene, give us some update?
I certainly can. I can address the study portion of the North Hills. We actually received our letter of intent to fund from the state on that study this week.
Okay.
So we've gotten alternate funding for that study, which is gonna look at the North Hills, the canal, what we can do there, if there's an alternative to pumping, or upstream retention to assist in that area. So that study and study portion to give us the alternatives of what we can do is in the process right now. So that could be one line item on this list that is, we found alternate funding while we're waiting on this.
And I'm not asking the board to break the bank tonight. What I'm trying to do is get started on some of these projects, knowing that this might open the door to other things that are gonna come up that we can, from either pay-as-you-go or installment loan, we can add to it. But we're just trying to get started on some of these things. Again, there's plenty of opportunity here for the new board to spend funds from this. But
Can we incorporate the
So,
$250,000 for housing rehabilitation if we agree on that?
well, let's, just so we can kind of make some progress, why don't we just get approval on one, and then we'll go to the next one, see if we,
So, George, with this study, you said it'll be back within what, maybe 60 days?
I think we have a 90-day limit on
Okay.
when they're gonna give us some alternatives. Then we
Okay.
can come back before y'all and say, these are our alternatives.
Okay.
What consultants think will work and what we can get permitted, and then that, we hope to have some cost estimate on going forward with one of those if we
So,
select one.
so I'm gonna throw it out here to you hypothetically, if that study is feasible and they just say, yes, we can put a pumping system over there. What amount of money, just an estimate, or what do you think a pump system would be in there? $1 million, $2 million?
It's difficult for me to say. I mean, we're just in the study process of it. I hate to speculate and give you a number and then, without any faith in the accuracy of that.
So you don't know what the cost of pumps cost?
I'm not sure what size pumps are gonna put in,
Right.
what's gonna be
But just an
required.
estimate, you can go from 500,000 to
I mean,
2
you
million.
could be as small as $250,000, we could be at 2.5 million.
There you go, that's,
How's that?
yeah. That gives me
That's a
some
broad range.
ballpark of what you're speaking of.
Correct.
But, I know, Mayor, you had expressed a time before in a couple of meetings that we had, and you put a dollar amount on pumps. I think you said like 21,000 gallon
well,
pumps.
those are 21,000. I don't think you need that. You need
Okay.
probably about an 8,000 or 10,000
All right,
gallon electric. But George, that'll all,
Yeah, I know, it's difficult to speculate when
I
we're
understand
studying,
that.
when we're just getting into this.
okay.
Alderman, what was your original thought on that? I heard, I want to see if I can get a motion in a second on what you mentioned $2 million, is that correct?
Mhm.
Correct.
And which particular item are you?
Drainage,
Sir?
$2 million in drainage.
Well, are you talking about the 2.45 million, or are you talking about,
The 2.45 million
you're talking about the
says
2.45?
drainage and sidewalks. I'm talking about $2 million for drainage.
Yes. And I
Well, I mean, are you for making a motion on that? I'm looking for some,
I mean, I would imagine we're probably gonna have to create a project fund or a budget amendment. I mean, there's something official, I'm assuming that would have to be done, right?
And we can also provide a list of projects, so you'll know exactly what they are.
Is
Well,
this
I'm
just
trying to-
direction now, Scott? It would be-
Direction, yes,
Just
ma'am.
direction, so we don't really need to vote, but I mean, show of hands or something. that we-
okay, and I'm trying to lock this down a little bit so we don't vacillate back and forth on these items.
So I would like to,
Can we just do one at a time, then do this?
sure,
And protocol says that Alderwoman Harris had the next item, and you will have the third.
I'm gonna go ahead.
We're not.
No, I'm gonna make the motion.
Oh,
Because
on
I-
this.
we can make a motion. I make a motion that we allocate $2 million to drainage from the ARP funds that we received, and for it to come up on the next agenda item with all of the
Is
information
that
that we need to.
2.45, or is that?
It's 2
It's the
million.
two. It's
That
the
was,
two.
that was
Okay.
$2 million
All
for
right.
drainage. Who said, was there a
I
second?
did, second.
Okay, thank you.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries, okay. So at this time, Alderwoman Harris.
Well, I was gonna ask if we can allocate $250,000 to, housing rehabilitation, because that is an immediate need and can help in city limits.
Well, Alderman Harris, let me ask you about that. When you say housing rehabilitation now, so you're talking about taking that $250,000 and giving it,
Partnering with Habitat, because they're gonna do all of the work for us and work with the owners that have homes that need to be rehabbed.
so this has nothing, that $250,000 has nothing to do with the redevelopment commission?
They work within the redevelopment area as well.
So it would are you restricting it to the redevelopment area?
We
or
can
are you
restrict it to
restricting
we can restrict it to redevelopment area, that's fine.
I-
As
I'm
long
just
as we
asking
have
a
the
question.
funds, I just wanna be able to have funds to go to rehabbing homes, and Habitat has everything that we need for them to do their one-stop shop. And, I mean,
No.
we work with them, we give them land to build homes, and so that helps with the tax that we bring in, but we still need to maintain the homes that are here, that people live in the city, and they're willing to do the work and partner.
I'm just,
Okay.
go ahead, Barb.
No, you go
No,
ahead.
no, you go.
Now, if I'm correct, I thought that we as a board agreed to give $150,000 from the CDBG fund to the redevelopment commission for rehab.
I don't remember
But
that.
this is, the CDBG funds, those were the funds that were unused and unspent. Okay, that couldn't be used anywhere else because they're so restrictive.
It's the
That's the
restriction.
problem, it's the restriction of the HUD fund, or excuse me, the HUD fund,
Right.
CDBG HUD funds.
So, are we gonna
therefore-
receive that $150,000 each year, or are we of the CDBG action plan? That $150,000, are we gonna allocate that each year to the redevelopment?
No,
Okay.
this is past
Okay.
CDBG funds that were unspent.
Right.
So they're using those to rehab the house that was moved from Gaston Boulevard over to Bloomfield Street.
Okay, so it's a one-time deal.
A one-time,
All right, that's all I need to know.
yeah, it was a
Okay.
one-time deal.
Okay.
A little bit of concern, I've been working for months now with Habitat and the Redevelopment Commission. I've worked very hard in trying to bring all the partners to the table because it's important that we start doing this. The thing has been with Habitat that they only help homeowners. Some of the issue in the community, in the CNI, is that the amount of ownership isn't very great. It's mostly people living in rental properties that are not being cared for by their landlords, or the landlords may not have the funds to fix them up. So that's a whole nother issue and a whole nother problem. These funds would not help those people.
Right.
The other CDBG funds we had did not help those people. I'm just wondering, and by giving the money to Habitat, do we open the door, do we start a precedence for something that some other organization or somebody else starts doing? Would it be better to stay in-house and we define what the boundaries are, and people make application to us, say, a leaking roof, this or that? There are people, I went by the house today in Dufferfield. that it's so bad. I had visited before. The electric is not good. People should be living there, but it's a rental property and the person cannot pay any more rent, and they're afraid of being kicked out. That's concerning to me. So when you talk about the lives of our citizens, Alderman Best, I'm very concerned about that. So I'm worried that, we're putting $250,000 to Habitat, and Habitat they are probably the best organization to partner with. Everything they do, and I have so much respect for Mike Williams. But I think we need to think long and hard on how the money's managed. I don't know that we should just be writing checks.
So I can meet you halfway. I agree about this funding. So because when I brought it up a couple of years ago, I knew that we were not in the business of maintaining the money and doing it. But now that we see the need and how important it is, if we're willing to create, this avenue where we have this money and we do it in-house, I absolutely will get behind it.
Yeah, I just think it needs to have criteria. It needs to have.
Right, so if we can.
I would like to hear from Habitat, see if they would even do it.
No, the way she's saying it is in regards to being in-house, and they come and.
So the citizens would come to, let's say.
Or either
straight to the planning
let them go
department and say that-
let the redevelopment commission handle it.
But that.
I thought that was already handled for citizens through the CDBG
Those
program.
funds are
Through,
extremely
wait a
restricted.
minute, through development services.
They
Ms.
are.
DeAsia is the one that handles
That's
that
correct.
process.
But the problem is they're not reaching, very few people can use them because of the guidelines set up with HUD. With this, we could set up our own guidelines.
Right.
So it may not be, income level. It just may be, you're 62 or older and your roof is leaking. It would provide funding and maybe you'd make applications.
So is it gonna be restricted to one area, the redevelopment area?
Well, again, there's no.
Or can
there's
people in
no
Pembroke
criteria.
or?
That's there's no criteria.
I'm right, so if we're in agreement that some of the funds could be allocated or whatever we decide, if we're in the conversation, can we further the conversation in whether I hate the ad hoc groups, but if we all understand the need now, can we move forward with the conversation to figure out how to create this program that the city's doing? Are we at that point where we can do that
Yeah,
now?
and again, I think we need to bring a Habitat to the table. I think and Redevelopment Commission for that matter, and let's just talk and see how we can use, the city's gonna appropriate the funds, and we're gonna appropriate the funds in the proper manner with restrictions and whatever we need to do to make sure the funds are being spent correctly. I have no problem with that, and, rehabilitation is key in that
So
scene.
we have a meeting tomorrow, we'll bring it up, you could bring it up there in regards to.
Well,
I'd
I'd like to meet with Habitat too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying at that meeting, because Mike or Antoinette is usually there, let's just put it out on the table if they're interested, Habitat, if redevelopment is interested, for us to come together to create some criteria and a game plan in regards to how we can best utilize some of these funds to help with rehabbing homes within the city of New Bern.
Well, what I want to know is, Attorney Davis, can we as a city, these are ARP funds, can we as a city take this money and put restrictions on this money as this rehabilitation program?
Yes, ma'am, you're actually gonna have to.
Okay.
Staff, so tonight, what you're gonna be doing is, if you're staying on the same path, is giving staff some direction about program parameters, so that staff can then come back with a precise plan.
Yes.
Because there are legal requirements that are tied to this money at various levels. So,
I think that would be the first step, is have staff get the legal parameters together, and then while the staff is doing a wonderful job with that, we're having the conversation with the other two parties involved to see if it can actually be executed. That's how, I think that's a great start. Do you agree?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
So tell me how that's gonna work exactly. You're gonna report back to the board.
well, staff is going to take this direction and give you some criteria for what a program might look like. Owner, tenant, all the various possibilities, and then you guys can narrow it down.
I guess
But
the
it
issue
can
would
be
if
citywide,
Habitat-
right?
Yeah, if Habitat said, well, we're not working with renters, we're only working with owners, is that a restriction that would be limited, and that wouldn't be agreeable to ARP funds? That's the why I think they need
That's
to
the
be at the
question,
table.
is, correct,
Yeah.
and that's why CDBG does not give money to wealthy landlords
Correct.
who should be fixing up their properties for lower income people.
Right.
And you don't make the same mistake with other months, and that's probably a restriction.
And I agree with you, but I think over in the most of the concerned areas, they're landlords that are low income and, you know, they can't maintain their own property, let alone the rental property, so I understand the need.
Yes, and there may be restrictions that
Right.
you would record against the property
Right.
to ensure that it's used for a period of 10, 20 years for low-income tenants.
Right, yep.
So there are some restrictions, but staff's gonna need to work through those.
Absolutely. It's the point of taking the step to do that.
No.
Okay, what other items could the board mutually agree on to move forward on some of the ARP funds?
I think it's necessary that we look at the money for the redevelopment commission to renovate the McConnell House and the wellness. I mean, the longer we wait, the worse
Okay.
off that shop's gonna be.
Okay.
I absolutely agree.
And again, what I'll say to that, that's the number there. I think, again, you know, you just kind of earmark the number. I don't think this is written in stone. You go to them. You know, again, went by there. Again, today, I have some concerns on ADA compliance, how we gonna get people in the door or get them to any other part of that house upstairs. You know, if we're gonna use it for a health and wellness center, people can't get in it because it's not accessible. I have some concerns. So again, we need to go in there. It may be 250,000 won't help it. I don't know that for a fact, and then it leaves no money for programming. But earmark it. I have no issue in earmarking the money and leaving it that way. It's not in stone. We could go back and let the redevelopment commission put a plan back together and say, look, this is what we think we can do, and this is, let them get the cost.
I could get behind earmarking it. That's again, that is a step in the right direction,
Yes,
that
an
we're
earmark.
showing them that we're supporting what they're trying to do for the McConnell House.
Yes, ma'am, and the direction to staff would be helpful. Actually, this would be direction to the redevelopment commission, if the board is so inclined to encourage them to come back to you with a construction estimate,
Yes.
so that you have a
Yes.
hard
Alderman
number.
Odom, did you have any comments based on your inspection of that building?
Alderman Best and I, with
I'm sorry, Alderman. Best.
Assistant
Okay.
Manager Williams, visited the site, and I know that the property owner behind, either behind or beside, said they would be willing to give that property to help with the parking situation. So it obviously needs parking. There is some ADA issues that's got to be addressed. It needs a new roof. It needs new windows. It needs some work, but I think $250,000, and I'm not an architect here, but I think it would go a long ways toward that.
So do I. By looking at that building has a lot of potential inside, and it just needs some love. And for, like he said, the roof and the windows, I saw was the main issues with that house. So, and moving forward, I'm quite sure that's.
I don't want to write it in stone. Let them come
Yeah,
back to us.
right.
Maybe they can do it for 125, I don't know,
Right.
or 150. But let's, you know, I say if
Who
we're
come back
in
to us?
agreement that it's okay, we just don't
The
have the
redevelopment,
details.
when they come back with the true estimate of what it would be. Because we tried to get in there on Saturday, but we weren't able to when we did the tour.
Okay, is the board in agreement to move forward on the
Yes.
McConnell House?
Yes, I am.
Does anybody object to that? Does the staff have direction on that you need? What other items might we all agree on in our fair city that need attention?
Can we allocate some money to the sidewalks too?
I'd love for you to, but let me mention one thing. Bring us up to date. I know that Alderman Odom was very interested in the basketball court, and that we found out that there's a timetable on that to avoid losing funding from FEMA. So where are we on that?
Right.
And if we were to allocate money for the Henderson Park, when could we do that? And
Right, so just so you know, the basketball goals are scheduled to go in, I believe, the first of next week. The court itself will be installed right after that. So it would be an 84-foot long high school regulation court. We had applied for a change in scope of work with FEMA to include lights for the basketball court, a shelter adjacent to the basketball court where that could double as a farmer's market, and a larger shelter for gatherings, some bleachers, some concrete kids games such as bingo, hopscotch, things like that would be on the existing foundation of the old recreation center, some upgrades to the parking lot, as well as changing out the old fitness trail to include newer amenities. That trail was put in over 20 years ago, so it's lived its useful life. So those were, and we actually reached out to our consultants, and we're still waiting to hear from FEMA on word from that change in scope of work. That does not take into account the fact that we still will be installing a brand new set of restrooms over at the park as well. But we have to wait for FEMA on that.
I asked the state today to give us an estimated time frame for the scope of work. So they were gonna reach out, see where it was at.
And so what's the feelings of the board about the Henderson Park item?
I think we ought to wait. Well, I think we ought to wait until we get the scope of work back. I mean, we really shouldn't be getting it back anytime.
I agree.
So, but, so you're
I mean, we
saying-
might have to, if they deny that, we're
So
putting the horse before the cart before the horse. Yeah.
Do you think with your expertise that they would deny that change of scope?
Yeah, who knows what FEMA will do nowadays?
Mm.
It would be hard for me to believe that they would deny it, but they've done a lot of other stuff that was hard for me to believe as well, so.
Okay.
Would the board
But
want-
I do think that we're on the short roads of getting an answer.
Okay.
Would the board want to entertain moving forward on that with subject to the FEMA approval of the scope?
I could get
So,
behind that.
so are you saying $500,000 is gonna completely redo that whole Henderson Park? With all the amenities, is that what you're saying? No?
No, no.
No, ma'am.
No, okay.
What we had on this was a proposal to cover the basketball court with a shelter, and you received an image to give you an idea of that, as well as do some other amenities.
So the other amenities would be bathrooms?
Not necessarily restrooms, but it could be some updating of ball field lights that have not been affected. It could be some new fencing around those ball fields.
Right.
But that's still
Other
the
amenities that have
unknown,
been discussed.
because we don't have an answer to the scope of work. If they deny the change of scope of work, we're gonna be putting bathrooms in, because that's what the money was allotted for. So, I think we should wait on that project until we hear back from FEMA.
And regardless, the basketball court is going in.
But that's city money, right?
That's right, that's city money that's gonna be doing that.
Okay.
That's ARP money?
No,
No.
that is general fund from Parks and Recreation.
And I don't even want to mention it, but we really need to look and maybe spend some of this money. I think before I put a cover on a basketball court, I would spend the money on the drainage issue, because the kids can't play on those fields over there because, I've gone out there, Mr. Brown, and I see Mr. White out there. He's told me as well about how bad the
Exactly.
water
Yeah,
just
I asked
puddles
about
there,
it
and they
earlier.
can't play baseball and, do
At
other
Henderson
things.
Park?
Yeah, but see,
Yeah.
And you can't feel it either.
But see, I asked
Can't feel it?
about that ditch earlier
Oh,
today.
fill it, is that what you're saying?
Feel it.
F-I-L.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What
Yeah,
is it?
that's southern accent for you.
Sorry.
Well, I don't know, but what can they do? That's an issue that I really want to have resolved, because I want the kids to be able to play baseball there and the other things that they do in those fields. And if they're always muddy or they're
Right.
always full of water, then they're no good to anybody. So
I
that's what
agree.
I would rather spend the money rather than covering the basketball court,
I think
because
we just
we're
need
gonna
to
have
put
an
that
indoor
one on hold
basketball court at
until we hear.
Stanley White.
But we don't
So-
know when, the
Understood.
reason behind that was because there is nothing for the children to do right now.
Right.
But I agree, because that's what I
It's like
brought
a
up
mud
to
hole over there.
Foster and then,
Yes, it
this
is.
morning about that ditch over there in regards to how is it looking.
I'd
So
rather
I
spend
do-
the money, that would be my choice. to
It's
spend
not
the
a
money.
ditch, it's a
I do
canal.
agree with that water situation over there. I do absolutely agree.
Would the board be interested in staff reaching out and seeing the permitting possibilities of a foot to 2 foot of backfill in those areas? Now, I know the Thalman Field, when we did all that preparation, did irrigation. I assume there was some field brought in. Were you here at the time?
No, sir, I was not.
Okay, well, you know, some of that was very marginal at best, and before we spent all that money on sod, I think that was laser engineered and crowned properly, and so I'm not of the opinion that there's a 100% preclusion from doing some contouring in that area. And would the board want to get the staff direction to find out? The only thing that's going to solve some of that is bringing in some the proper field material. In the case of soccer fields years ago at the community college, I know that a hybrid of some clay and mostly sandy loam soil was brought in for that field at the time. And I think you could do similar improvements there if you want to look into it.
There was football that they played out there, I remembered, so is
Yeah.
that where the football?
I agree with you, Mayor, but I do also agree with Alderman Astor in regards to we should probably, although it would be amazing to be able to do something on Henderson Park right now, we probably do need to wait for FEMA to get that
Well,
approved.
I wouldn't be talking about spending any money. What we keep doing is we get ready to do something, and then we have to wait on a study. And then that's,
You know,
9
Kim,
days to-
help me with this. I mean, you have just as much knowledge as FEMA as I do. But FEMA certainly frowns upon bringing in field dirt for an area that's been declared substantially damaged by flooding. Is that your understanding as well, or do you not have knowledge of it, or?
She didn't hear you. She didn't hear you.
Did you not hear me?
Say-
Yes. Sorry,
No,
I thought I was. Did you hear the question?
partially, yes. Can you repeat the question?
Yes. I know from my knowledge, which I'm going to admit I'm not an expert, but from my knowledge, FEMA frowns upon you bringing in field dirt for a property that has been declared substantially damaged by flooding to build something on it. It can stay, I mean, if it's there, you can use it, you can put it back, but it's my understanding that we can't raise the elevation of it if it's been declared substantially damaged. Now, but we can confirm this by a simple phone call tomorrow.
nobody in this room is in a position to answer that question, because it can be answered by way of a credit system of finding the many acres of land the city has, that we work out some mitigated credit swap of use of land, and that we take a uplands area and make it a wetlands area and compensate. I mean, nobody can answer this question. It has to be processed and worked out, properly crafted with an engineer.
Well, I know we discussed the football fields back there, and could we put the football fields back? Yes, put them back. With the understanding that they flood, and eventually the water runs off, and we play football again. So, but I just, personally, I don't think we should do anything in that area until we hear back from the scope of change, the scope of work, so we'll know what we have to spend the money on.
Yeah.
And you said you put a call in, and
I called the state today to get an update on it.
and you think we can hear in the next 30, 60 days?
Oh, I would hope so. Usually this doesn't take that long, but
Well, regardless, we got to rebuild that park.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've already allocated money, like he said, the hoops are still going up.
It's got to make,
So things are still happening, it's just, you know, in regards to, you know, the FEMA funding, you know, we've had our fair share of dealings with FEMA and change of scopes. We need to just go ahead and let it be what it is so that we can get it done.
well, I know.
Well, I think we did great with the money that we spent. We still
I
have
still-
about $825,000.
I would just push that to the
Yeah.
side right now, and
I agree.
let's
Yeah.
come back to it,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
I agree.
At least we're spending some of the money,
Yeah.
we're gonna spend that $3 million here,
Yeah.
no problem, so.
Right.
Well,
And
some
I'd say what we've done so far is good, and call it a night.
Well,
Mayor,
we
you
haven't
were
discussed sidewalks.
Well, I mean, I would put the whole $800,000 towards sidewalks.
How
I
did you
want the
get
mayor
to
to,
just $800,000 left?
that was left from the three, if we were just
Oh,
speaking
okay,
on
I
the
got
three.
you.
Or anything under the city manager's report that the board wants clarity on as far as items like that. Last I knew, of the 250, we had spent about 85,000 or so at this, about a month ago on sidewalks. Is that correct?
So I think that they have encumbered some additional funds on sidewalks. Al, can you let us know where that stands?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I also have my ace in my sleeve here, George Charles, that can help me out as well. But I believe that we have all of the estimates for the sidewalk that we had listed before the board, and we are in process of getting that under contract with the contractor now, laying out the scope, and hopefully we're getting contracts in shortly.
Okay, now, does that include the Garden Street
It does
project?
not, ma'am. No, ma'am. That $75,000 estimate that we gave you, we're still preparing the documents for that. We'll be back to you shortly, to show you what those limits are. It was just based on that field observation we had from around.
Okay.
So, while you're here, I know Alderman Bingham and I rode by today, and there's just several places around the Omega Center where, you know, when there's a big event, people are looking for parking, so they're going all the way back down toward George Street. And the sidewalk at the Cedar Grove Extension, it all of a sudden just ends about, 300 feet before Bern? And those little donuts right there, donut holes, you know, if you could, I mean, I don't see why while going around looking for projects, I mean, Public Works should jump right on that one. It's very obvious that what folks are doing is they're using the Cedar Grove sidewalk, but then when there is a big event, there's a lot of traffic, foot traffic and parking going to the Omega Center, and what they're doing, they're walking that sidewalk, and all of a sudden they're having to walk out and go into the road to get on down to the Omega Center because they ran out of sidewalk. So, those are the type things I think particularly with big events around the Omega Center, it'd be real nice if we knew we had the sidewalks performing at their optimal.
Yes, sir. We've had issues with that in the past with events in that area.
So,
We'll look into it.
so I want to get an update here. So what, you may not have it available right now, but what is the dollar amount that you plan on spending for this fiscal year on sidewalks of that $250,000?
I believe we have it all spent. That was budgeted. It was $250,000 that was in
Okay.
the budget this past year adopted, so that's spent.
Okay, so then you will be getting back with,
The $75,000, I think,
Right.
that you wanted to know on Garden Street, yes, ma'am.
okay,
I think there's gotta be a budget line on for all sidewalks coming to us
Exactly.
for the budget, so,
right.
you know, maybe we can get that budget number and then add to it based on we see what they're recommending and covering, and then where we can go in new areas.
Now,
Mayor, I believe that's what you directed us while we were out there.
but if we're gonna put, $1 million in sidewalks, and we're talking about redoing Henderson Park, I think that would be, a sidewalk would be good to tie in there from Chapman Street on around Henderson Park Field to Garden Street.
Mr. Hughes, would you update board on the conversation that we had this morning with the gentleman that's doing the same work right now in Trent Woods?
Yes,
Mr. Atlas?
had a conversation with a designer, and we'd really like to look at getting them to come in and give us an idea of some cost. And one of the projects that we talked about was Garden Street, and actually tying that into Chapman Street. So we should be coming back to you very soon with some recommendations on that.
So would the board want to give Mr. Hughes direction to look into other opportunities to provide foot traffic sidewalks in the Duffield area, so we go ahead and get started on some of these, if we have to do a budget amendment, whatever. Obviously, your deal, we would have to do a budget amendment, is that correct?
That's correct.
But we can't do it though if we don't do it. So the first thing would be to, you know, the public works and everybody else, we gotta get somebody to do this. And I don't think it's gonna be that big a deal to get it engineered. And then the next thing would be a budget amendment and get it poured.
Yeah, it's already city property there,
Right.
that field, that
We
ball
ran
field.
into one place where one tree's got to be taken out.
That's about it, yeah.
Mayor, just a reminder that the MPO is in the middle of an update to our bike and pedestrian plan. I know Jeff's gone, but there's several in the audience that's a part of that group. I believe they said they were going to present that in May. Is my memory correctly? So they're going to be presenting an updated plan in May that says they've looked at all the different connections. There's been a lot of work that's put behind it. So I personally think you should wait until you get a strategic plan to say what needs to be done versus just, I feel like a sidewalk should go over here, let's go build one. That's my opinion.
You know what, Alderman, Odom, respect to you, I can't see, and I may be wrong, but I can't see with that MPO plan bringing a pedestrian bike system in Duffield. Now, I may be wrong, and I hope it comes to fruition. I just can't see that they coming into that area of Duffield with the sidewalk. I mean, with the bike plan with sidewalks. If we as representatives of the city don't get this done for sidewalks, it's not gonna get done in that area. I'm just sorry, that's just the way I feel about it.
Well, I agree and I disagree. Okay, so I agree that what you said about the MPO plan would probably not address that, but it would address the connectivity that we do need. So in the other areas that we've got scheduled, I think it's a good idea. The part, again, in Duffield, lots of things are happening. You know, your area, Garden Street, that might make sense, but again, with Habitat building houses, with Redevelopment has now bought a lot of First Avenue. And so they're going to go in there and potentially put the houses set back on the property so they can widen the street like they did on 3rd Avenue. So 3rd Avenue now, if you think back how narrow that was, the city bought all those houses, they widened the streets and put the sidewalks in that were not there before. That is part of an overall plan, and I think that before we go putting sidewalks, we just need to make sure, and I'm not, Garden Street is, I think, a totally different subject. But like what the mayor said, that Cedar Street extension there, we could go ahead and fix that so it'll go to the corner, like stops in the middle of the street there. It doesn't make sense.
No, that would curve on around.
No,
the
I'm talking
backside.
about Cedar and George Street.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not in that area before
Right, okay.
that. So it's things like that that we should look at and maybe try to fix. That would not be a part of a larger plan or a larger maybe vision or whatever as we start to redevelop the neighborhoods and find where we can put sidewalks. Today, Alderman Harris showed me something in the Pembroke community where it wouldn't be every street, but it made sense what it would be. That's the kind of stuff that we want to add into maybe a plan going forward that would include maybe these new ARP funds to do something like that. For Garden Street, 75,000, we might be able, again, to work that, make the budget amendment, get that in here. But we do need to talk about sidewalks. I'd like to see what the city's going to propose as far as their budget for sidewalks and what does that cover, and then try to use additional ARP funds to fill in the rest where we don't have funds. That makes sense to me.
George, quick, are all of our sidewalks ADA compliant? Do they have the wheelchair ramps and everything that's required? I mean, personally, before we go putting in a whole bunch of new sidewalks, don't you think we should fix the ones that we have?
As we address or need to repair sections that are out of compliance, we bring those into compliance. And then any new sidewalks that are constructed do meet ADA.
So, but we still have a lot of existing sidewalks out there that a wheelchair can't get down off the curb, right? There's not ramps and stuff. I mean, I think we should fix what we have. I'm not against building sidewalks, but my God, I'm certainly for fixing the ones that we have and making them compliant and wheelchair
And
friendly.
Our crews have been working to get all the curb ramp situations done with the.
But are you just going out and doing that, or only when you have a repair in that area?
No, we've done some that were not just repair areas where we've noticed that we did not
Okay,
have the
well-
ramps. And certainly we can send our crews to do those.
So do you have 90% of them complete?
It'd be speculation if I gave you a percentage.
Okay. Well, it would be nice if we were to make some of the sidewalks that we currently have
Great.
ADA compliant. I'm not against building sidewalks. I just think we should fix what we have.
I don't know the phase-in period, but I know that the city for some time has been working on the proper ramping of those sidewalks. I know that to do every one of them at one single time was gonna be cost prohibitive, so I know that we have been working on it. And I know that if the board gives direction to get the engineering done and get this Garden Street sidewalk done, and it's $75,000, there's nothing wrong with adding a budget amendment to $25,000 more to do some ramping, but that's not done. But again, it is, I mean, I can tell you all over the city, there's places where the handicap accessibility of those sidewalks have been improved. Not totally, and I don't, did you have a percentage that are completed?
I don't understand why the county doesn't put into it some of the.
Do you have a percentage of the sidewalks throughout New Bern that have been ADA compliant with ramping now?
I don't believe we have an accurate inventory
Right.
on that right now.
Does anybody know what the timetable is of all of the city sidewalks being ramped properly? 5 or 10 years, or?
Public Works would have to do a little bit of
Yeah,
research
we'd
on
have to
that.
do some background. You know, been here all of 7 weeks, Mr. Mayor, board.
Weeks, that's a
And this is
lifetime.
very,
I
it's
mean,
quite
all-
an education, so pardon me while I step away from this fire hose that I'm drinking from. But I do want to tell you, the good news is that you have all the elements, we have all the elements to really make an impact on the pedestrian, even on some cycling areas, and I've seen it. My experience in other communities that we do, I wouldn't be standing here before you telling you this in confidence, that you have the elements. Just give us some time, give us the direction that you are, and we're hearing you. Your staff is very capable of taking this direction, and I believe we can do that. So in regard to the sidewalk, I think we're primed to tell you, give you some direction, give you enough specificity that you can make the.
So what is your analysis, or what is your orders from City Hall as far as the Garden Street?
Mayor, I was just gonna say in regards
Yes.
to that, I think, you know, in everything that's being said, I think we can give some sort of direction for Garden Street, because I do agree with what Odom's saying in regards to the strategic plan, but I also agree with my fellow Alderwoman that there's definitely not probably gonna be anything in there for that area, and this is about connectivity. We're dealing with Henderson Park, Stanley White. Why can't we just go ahead and give directions for the Garden Street Chapman situation, $75,000, so we can move forward and on to the next agenda item?
Is that a motion?
Alderman, give staff an opportunity to get a full price on the
Okay.
connectivity on Garden Street all the way to Chapman, because that
Exactly.
$75,000 did not include that entire amount. So if you don't mind, if you'd like to give us direction to come back to you at the next meeting, we can have some accurate
Barbara,
information
is that
for you.
what you wanna do, give direction?
He took the words out of my
Okay,
mouth.
sounds
That
good.
would be the proper
Okay.
way to handle that, to tie
Sounds good.
in Garden Street to the Chapman Street.
Sounds good. I'm good with the direction. I don't have anything else on that I wanna spend.
Anything else on the city manager's report at this time?
No, sir.
Let's go to new business. Alderman Odom,
None tonight, sir.
Alderman Bass.
Yes, I do. I got, let me see. I did, I want to say to Public Works and to you, Mr. Hughes, thank you for installing those trash cans. Believe me, I see a tremendous difference in the trash over on Garden Street. Thank you. I do want to request for 2 more trash cans, and I'm not asking for expensive trash cans of $1,200. If maybe there may be some in some other department somewhere within the city that's not being utilized, that can be put in. I do know that Main Street, there's a lot of trash over on the Main Street section, so if that can be addressed, I would appreciate it. And Mr. Hughes, and George, I want to know, what is the latest update on the Lincoln Street project? For as the trees being taken out and the street being put back to a 2-lane street so that cars can pass and not have to stop for one another to pass by?
Let me ask Mr. Childs to come up and address that.
I believe all of the trees, we've taken all of the trees down that were identified on that street that were encumbering the shoulder of the right of way right now. And that should open up the travel a lot where you don't have the tree trunk right beside the edge of pavement.
Okay, so are y'all gonna go in and clear off, good Lord, I don't know, a foot or 2 of debris, dirt and grass on the side of the street and bring the street back? That's what I was thought that would be
We can
included.
certainly run in there and nip that street if that's what you would like us to do, to see if we can expose some overgrown edge of the pavement.
Yes, very much needed.
We can certainly do that.
Exactly. Well, thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Okay, before we get to Alderman Kinsey, Mr. Williams, Marvin Williams, what did y'all do in Havelock about litter? In the last month, there are black bags. I think he was right down the road just chunking it, and it's just, I just never seen so much trash. And I know, again, you
Got
guys,
that complaint about Highway
Right.
70. and
you
it's
guys probably dealt
terrible
with,
all over.
the transfer trucks, going to landfill. So, did you have issues in Havelock, and how did you take care of them?
Mr. Mayor, we actually never really had any major problems like that, but we did do something similar to what we've done in some of the communities where you would set aside certain weekends where you would have citizens come together and go do some of the cleanup, but we never had any major issues where.
Well, let me ask you this. Those transfer trucks, I assume going through Havelock were going 35 mile an hour, but when they hit 55, 60, whatever they're doing, the dynamics, the aerodynamics of that holding cell, that stuff is just coming out, and it's more along the major highways. So you guys, that's why you probably didn't deal with it as much.
No, sir. I guess the difference is Havelock is a smaller area, and as anyone who's traveled through there realize there's a lot of traffic lights, so the speed never got to a point where it would create those similar situations.
Well, I've talked to Representative Steve Tyson. I've talked to some highway patrolmen. I think I've had a light conversation with the sheriff, and I probably have talked with Chief Gallagher, but I haven't figured out how you get those transfer trucks to quit. It shames me to see volunteers out there picking all this trash up, and in 2 weeks' time, those transfer trucks are coming through all for nothing. So I've always been for fines, particularly nowadays. I'm not trying to get into a totalitarian system of policing our city and our surrounding areas, but to me, until there's some accountability from a fine standpoint or something, there's probably going to be about a 5-tier approach to improving litter in the city. Now, I know Alderman Bingle is...
Yeah, we've been dealing with it, and the issue right now is when someone litters, you turn them in, you call bait, and if they come, they say to them, hey, you're littering, clean it up. And they may take a day or two, they clean it up, and then 2 days later, they're littering again. So either the fines are not stringent enough, or just there's not enough enforcement, whatever it is, and so there's trash and at different parts of the city, but the 70 trash has been unbelievable lately. On the side of the road, I cannot believe it. Also too, street sweepers, our street sweeper is back, is that correct? It's back. Will you please, Mr. Clabelli, please, it's Bern and Main Street, going down Main Street. She's asked that there's a lot of trash and they think it's people coming from either the field or George Street Recreation Center, I don't know, what do they call it now, Senior Center, and maybe even RCS coming and walking down the streets and just throwing their trash on the ground. So need to get the street sweeper out there for them, please. But yeah, trash is a real issue. I'm sure I could have some people in this audience step up and speak about trash. It's really an issue.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes, sir. Going back to the trucks, a lot of the trucks have screens on the back of them that's torn up, it's not working. And we need to get the number or the name of the company and call them and let them know. And I think that would break that up. That's something that we need to do. That's the only way to handle that.
Is there a finding in place? Do we have
That's
something
all I have
in
to say.
finding in place now, Mr. Davis, that, I mean, I think the State Highway Patrol or the state requires that those trucks are covered.
Yes, ma'am.
They do.
And if they're something, they can be fined. There's a
Yes,
fine
that is
already in
correct.
place.
Yes, ma'am.
But you got to catch them to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, does this board have any interest in getting our manager to write a letter to the Highway Patrol or to the transfer company? Talk's cheap. What direction does the board want to take on that?
George has probably got more authority than anybody when it comes to that trash company. I mean, he
I think
signs
he's
their
looking for
contract.
direction from us.
Yeah,
And it's more of those large transfer trucks. They're coming out of Carter County.
yeah.
And that's where I see most of it.
Oh, and I'd like to see stiffer penalties or something for repeat offenders. You know, you may get a letter and they clean up, but if you
I don't think
you
there's
know,
ever been an
5
offender
letters
to
a
be-
month, even though they clean up, if there's some way to make harsher penalties, I think.
Well, you gotta have an offender to have a repeat offender. I don't know of any tickets that have been written.
Yeah, well, they're happy because we allow them so many days to clean up, or what is it? Is it 2 weeks, or what is the time frame?
10 days for
10 days.
the weedy lots, but I think the trash
Trash.
right away is a different kettle of fish.
Well, I'm talking about even trash on property. So, properties is trashed, and the complaint is made, and then they pick it up, and then 2 days later, it's trashed again, another complaint. So each complaint gets 10 days? Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
how that works?
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Astor.
Yeah, Charlie, I sent you an email earlier. We've had some residents in my neighborhood to ask questions about landscaping around utility boxes. I actually sent you an email. I just sent it to you a few minutes ago. But if you would look at your email, I mean, there's some big questions about what kind of landscaping can they put around utility boxes? How close can they be? And I think the same would apply to hydrants and.
We have some published guidance on that. I'd be happy to share.
Okay, thank you. I sent you the lady's email. If you would just respond to her, I'd appreciate it.
What else?
And that's all I have.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yep, some announcements from the community. Sharon Bryant with Tryon Powers, she wanted me to let you guys know about the Pathway to Freedom, the Underground Railroad Symposium, May 21st, at 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., $5. You can get your tickets at Tryon Palace, in honor of International Women's Day. I would like to say that, we've made history, and it's an honor and a privilege to sit here and serve on this board with you, women, and do the work that we do. And I also want to make sure that I take time to tell every single employee that is watching, listening, and here, I appreciate all the hard work that you do to make our city the way that it is. Also, I had the opportunity to take my daughter to tour the firemen on, what is it? On Noose, because she wants to be a firefighter when she grows up, and that is a thankless job sometimes, and I want to say thank you, Chief, for allowing that. She will be there on Saturday to support, because she knows I'm a Boots supporter, but really, I had asked Bobby, I'm not sure, but if it is not, we have not passed in the budget, but I am in full support of making sure that we get replacements, for the necessities that we have, especially the, vacs, because of the time that it takes to get these things. So, hopefully you're putting that into the budget, and we support that as a board, because that's very important, the safety of our firefighters and what they do. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for all the hard work that you do.
Let me ask a question. Do you have any idea when the fire grant's gonna be released for your SCBA's?
I'd say probably next month if you start.
Good. Sorry.
Nope, that's it. That's all I have.
Okay, Alderman Bingham.
Didn't tonight, so we talked about the trash already.
Sir, I have one.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I did have one more thing. Mr. Hughes, I just hope that you put it, I know we mentioned it at the, our budget workshop. Hope you put it in your budget for the shelters at the cemetery. I was there this week for a family, funeral, and I was embarrassed at the shelter, so please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we need a closed session tonight.
No, sir.
Is there any further business to come before the New Bern Board of Aldermen at this time?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Is there discussion? Yes.
We received an email saying that there wasn't a participation for a closed session.
That's what Mr. Hughes had indicated earlier. I guess that's changed.
Hold on.
Okay, let's, go ahead, Alderwoman Harris.
No, I'm saying we're good? Okay, we're good. Never mind what we said.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, saying we are adjourned.